Hello, hi guys, happy Sunday. I'm so excited you guys are here. And again, to watch and let me show you how I painted this piece that I love. And the ePacket is available on my website. And I know many of you have already picked that up, but you can get that on my website at sandymcteerdesigns.com. I just loaded a bunch of new stuff, got in some new stencils, and yeah, so lots of fun things over there on my website. So let me put this down and we'll move that up. This is the piece I'm going to share and show you guys today. It's on an iPad stand. And this is available at vikingwoodcrafts.com. And if you just put in iPad stand, but you could use it for a book stand. I even like to put my phone on it, to be honest with you, because I like how wide it is. But great little piece, comes in 2 pieces. And again, vikingwoodcrafts.com. So let's just move that to the side. I am using what I used for the original, and that is the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics. Now let's talk about these real quick. The Media Fluid Acrylics are now available at Michaels.com. So at michaelsartsandcraftstores.com. Okay, I know they are going to be available soon. Let's zoom in just a little. So I want to take you from the background first up to where I am on this piece. All right. And to do that, I just grabbed a piece of wood that I have that's been used and abused, let me say, because I did something on this side, and before I painted on it, what I did not do was seal it. Now, this is my go-to multi-purpose sealer, and when you run your hand over this, you probably can't see it on the camera, but it's very fuzzy. So it brought up all that MDF wood, all right? So always a good idea when you're painting on wood, MDF is the multi-purpose sealer, just to, you know, kind of make sure everything's in place and your paint can lay on top of that instead of bringing up the wood grain or even the fuzziness of that pressed wood. So what I've done is very much like I did for the background. I needed to get to this step for us on the live to not be here for 5 hours with you guys, although I'd love to spend the whole day with you. So I went ahead and I just painted the other side of this piece with raw umber. And then, and again, all these instructions are in the ePacket. Let me zoom back out just a little. All right. So I used the DecoArt Vintage Effects wash. Now, if you guys have not used these, it's almost like a pickling. It just has such a pretty effect when you brush it over raw wood, painted wood, and such great colors. So I put white on and then I wiped it off. Now this is dry, okay? And then I came back with the Vintage Effects Wash Patina. Now, if you go to decoart.com, you can probably find them there. Maureen-baker.com, cdwood.com might have them, but the Vintage Effects Wash. And so if you've seen like beach signs or weathered wood, these are perfect paints for that. All right. So, hi, Linda from Amarillo, Texas, and Barbara. Thank you, guys. Okay, so, of course, I did not have this when I painted the original. This is the, as Tracy Moreau so eloquently calls her brush, the Fugly brush. This is a 1-inch oval wash encaustic wax brush. Okay, these are available on my website now. And so with the patina, I'm just going to brush this on over the whole thing. And I wanted to show you 2 different looks, and that's why I did it over the brown and over the white. Okay, so again, on my iPad piece, I painted the whole thing with raw umber. You could use asphaltum if you don't have the media fluid. You could use burnt umber, not my favorite, but. And then you're going to let it sit for a minute. So raw umber, let it dry. The Vintage Effects white, let it dry, or once it's on, let it sit a minute. Paper towel, wipe it off, like you saw that I did for half of it. Let that dry completely. Then patina on the whole thing. Let it sit for a minute. I'm gonna grab a paper towel. Thank you so much, Ruth. Thank you, Sylvie. All right, and with the paper towel, you're just gonna wipe it back. Okay, and the lines will show some, so I am going side to side. You don't want to wipe off too much. Okay, now notice down, let's see if I put it down. I think you can still notice, even with the light glaring a little, that here it's a little bit on the lighter dusty side, whereas here you see more of the brown. And that's why I put that white Vintage Effects first, wiped it off, let it dry, then the patina, put it on, wiped it off, because I wanted to have a little more opaque, dusty look to this background. So let's pick this up. Wipe that off. All right, now let's dry this real quick. Let me get my favorite little heated craft tool. This is the Ranger. You can get it at dickblick.com, cdwood.com, but it's very quiet. All right. Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you, Lorna. Hi, Robin. Did you just join? You won one of the giveaways from the 28th, the stencils and the stencil brushes. So make sure you send me your mailing address, and I will get those off to you this week. Finally getting my hair done tomorrow. Cannot wait. Okay, I'm just going to give it the touch test. Now, we wiped it off, so it's not that, doesn't take that long to dry it. Again, notice the difference. It's a little bit more dusty, sagey green down here and a little bit darker here. And then you want to use some sandpaper. So again, you can use a sand block. I love these little sanding pads. And what you want to do is you just want to take away some of that color. Kind of distress it a little bit more. Okay, so that will show some of that brown underneath, which is exactly where I've gotten to here. Okay, so do you see where I sanded some of that down and I can see that background color? If you want it to be a little bit more brown, if you want, you sand as much off as you want. If you sand too much off, you can always come back in and put more of the Vintage Effects. And I do too, Janet. I love the Vintage Effects. They're amazing. So many uses for them too. Okay. The other thing is, if you want to bring in some more warmth, you can always come back in with some brown with that oval and caustic brush. You can always pick up a little bit and bring some of that back in. So once I got done with the entire background, transferred my pattern, painted the bike and the basket with the media raw umber. If you're using Americana, and I know this is a hot, I don't know what happened there. This is the asphaltum, because Tracy Moreau uses it. I know it's sold out everywhere. So you might have a hard time finding it. You can use a raw umber in Americana. You can use a burnt umber, but I just love again, as you all know, the media line and the way this looks. So that's dry. I just did, you know, one coat on that. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. Let's get really close. Have you guys sitting right next to me in my studio here. Okay. So now what we're going to do is the stenciling. And I don't care if it gets on my, well, hello, probably a little too much. Let's zoom out right to there so that you can see the stenciling. Okay. So we're going to do a couple of stencils. I love, love, love this stencil. This is available at tracymoreau.net. Love this design, love this stencil. And I just, even though the birds, you know, I knew I wasn't going to see all of them or see all the letters, you still, I don't know, it just adds something to me, to the back. For me, it adds something. Now, one thing I did remember, I added this later. See the little flourishes here and over here? So I just added those to the ePacket and resent those to the people that ordered it because I obviously left that off the packet. So I wanted to have a little bit of design, and so I added another little stencil element. So just saw Sylvie, if you want to paint it on another surface that you're using. So it only shows this right here. But what you would do is you can just continue that wheel on further. What I would recommend doing is maybe tracing the pattern onto another piece of paper, drawing out the wheel so that you, have it circular. And another tip would be to get a compass and put that needle right in the middle and continue drawing it on a larger surface if you wanted to. All right. But I love designs that go off the edge and, don't show the whole thing. But you do definitely want a round circle for your wheel if you're going to show the whole thing. Okay. So let's get our stencil brushes. And I'm going to use some, and I also did the foot. Here's that little leg foot of the piece. We're going to get some Titan Buff. You can also use light buttermilk, oyster beige, bleached sand, any kind of tan light color for the background. I didn't want these in your face bright, so I'm just going to use some of the Titan Buff. We'll put that out on our palette. Give that a good little shake. Okay. And I'm using, get my Stencil Pro brush here. So I'm going to load up my brush, swirl it around on my palette, and then I'm going to swirl it around on a paper towel. Get a lot of that color off. Okay. And I just moved, just because the stencil's this way doesn't mean you can't move it. So I'm going to do my little jardin up here. I'd say about there. Soft circular motions. And I'm not going to do this line here. Just a little bit over there. Do the next part. A little bit of that swirl. And again, you're not going to see all the birds. Go ahead and get that on there. All right. And then I loved these little like swirls and curls, especially this one right here. And so I'm going to come right down here to the bottom. I did one right here. And they don't have to go in exactly the same spot. But I do, let's see, I'm going to flip this. So did you see how I do that? Just flip the stencil over. I'm using such little paint. There's not paint on the other side of the stencil that's going to get anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and put this little curly Q Let's do right there. And then this little swirl, and that little swirl right there is so pretty. So a bunch of little clusters. Soft circular motions. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to tone that down too if you get too much. Let's do a little right there. A little swirl here. And see, I'm just moving it around, just kind of filling in some of the space. I do want to have a little, I don't think this is on my original, this exact one, but I do want a little bit of a swirl right there behind the tire so it doesn't look like it just stops. And then let's do a little swirl maybe up here. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Janet. Thanks, guys, for being here. All right. So I have that just, you know, here and there and everywhere. All right. And then I'm going to take my, my M23. This is actually my scroll work that Tracy Moreau had made into a stencil. It's available on my website, also Tracy's. And I love it. Again, a little bit of Tighten Buff, swirl it around. This is the key. Wipe most of it off. You want a dusting of color. Nothing too bright, nothing too much. And then I'm going to just kind of lay this. Have a little bit of it here. Wipe it with your palm if you get too much. Flip it over and put a little bit here. All right, and I even think I have some right here. So I'm just gonna flip it over. And notice how I'm not worrying about if it gets into other areas, that's fine. A lot of times because I have such little paint, it's just gonna give it a little bit of dusting and it kind of fades out, and I love that. So you have a little bit heavier where you have a design, and then on the periphery where it got into another section, it almost just like fades right out. So, and it needs something over here. It's feeling a little bare. Okay, so nice, light little dusting. Now, what I want to do with this is tone it down even more. So I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper, find my sanding disc, and I'm just going to take that and go right over the letters, very lightly. Again, so it doesn't look like they're just sitting right on top. Ooh, someone said, Jessica said, Asphaltum was on sale on DecoArts. If y'all have not shopped at decoart.com, go over, check it out. On the home page, not sure if it's still going on, but there was a yellow banner with a lot of things on overstock price sale. So, unfortunately, the shipping's not that great, but at least you can get the product. All right, so notice how I'm just taking the sanding block and going lightly over this. It takes away that perfect stenciled look. So as part of the design, instead of just sitting on top. Works really great too if you get something too bright and you want to take it down a notch, but it allows more of that brown to show through. Okay, and then of course you want to just make sure it's dust free, get all that dust out of the way. All right, now let's zoom in. I'm going to get right on this bike. And we'll come over just a bit. Okay. So now I want to get out my colors that I'm going to use to dry brush. And put my palette right there so you can see it. Okay, so I'm using quinacridone gold. There really is not a great substitute. Hi, Elena. Do you find the media line stands up well? I'll have to look at that later, Nancy. I can't quite read because there's a comment over a comment. So I'm using quinacridone gold. I've not found a great substitute for this color, but if I had to use an Americana, I would use burnt sienna. Just notice the difference. This one has a little bit deeper tone to it. This is a little bit on the browner side, but they'll both work. They'll both give you kind of that rusty look, which is what I was going for with the bike. So quinacridone gold. And with the fluid acrylics, you only need a little pea size there. I'm also going to use a little bit of green gold. So Nancy, I can see your question now on the media line. Let me tell you, the media line works great on wood, paper mache, canvas, regular paper. It's incredible. Transparent, beautiful layering techniques that can be done with that. As you've seen over the past year, so many teachers are teaching with it, and it's just a beautiful, highly pigmented paint. All right, let me get my train of thought back here. Cobalt teal hue, which is my favorite media line color. If I were using an Americana, I would use probably Laguna, Bahama blue, Laguna, mermaid tail, any kind of aqua color would be pretty. And then I am going to use a little bit more Titan Buff, and I'm just going to put that color over here to the side because I don't want to get into it. And then I'm also going to use my my Mezzaluna. So the Mezzaluna brushes, these are the Dynasty Mezzaluna brushes, and for many of you seasoned painters that have been around a while, Low Cornell used to have crescent brushes that, you know, have a little bit of stiffness to them. They still move, but there's a little bit of stiffness to them. They're great for dry brushing. I love painting clouds, dry brushing techniques, trees, like evergreen trees. You can paint with these, but they come in a 4-piece set or individually. I have these on my website, but I'm going to be using the small. And just like when I stencil, I want to load up the brush, swirl it around, take a paper towel, wipe a lot of it off. Okay. Why? And I don't load too much, but the reason I'm wiping off is because first off, my brush is not wet and I only want a little bit of paint. All right. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to dry brush, and you know, you really can't see that drastic of a difference right now. Swirl it up. And I'm going to dry brush. I'm going to dry brush that color right along every piece of this bike. Swirl it around, wipe it off. Right over any stenciling. In fact, I need to take care of that right now because it probably will not go away. But where I stenciled, and the reason I did the bike first is I wanted to know where my stencil was kind of be lined up and laid out best for the design. So I'm just going to take some raw umber, slap that right on those lines, anywhere that the stencil might have gotten. Okay. And I just did that with a, number 4 little shader. Okay. Now, back to the quinacridone gold, load it up, wipe it off. And again, just going to dry brush. And again, layering colors. Not seeing it right now, but you will see it as we start to put other colors on here. I promise. Okay. And on the wheel, I'm going to stay out of that for right now. It's a little on the wet side. And that. Okay. So quinacridone gold. Then I'm just going to wipe the brush off really, really well. Pick up some of the green gold, swirl it around, wipe it off. Dry brush a little bit of that on. Okay. And just because I'm on camera, I'm just going to go ahead and bump that up with a little bit of Titan Buff. and start building up those layers of color. So hopefully you can see, let me zoom in just a little more, that color is starting to come up just a little. And I'm going to keep this color as I go along, a little bit more along the top of each section or the front or the, you know, depending on where that light's hitting it. So on this center bar, because I want it to look round, I'm going to keep this color along the top. This is green gold with a touch of Titan Buff, just so you guys can see it. I'm skipping a step in the instructions, but at least you'll be able to see it on camera. Little green gold, little Titan Buff. And this is an old bike that's been out in the weather. It's got tons of color on it. You know, that green, kind of that mossy buildup look, reflection from its surroundings. You know, on rust, it's not just brown and red and those rust colors. So we're even going to put some cobalt teal hue in here. Okay. Again, just dry brush on all these little elements. When you get to something thinner like this, you can come up on the chisel edge of that brush. Very, very tippy tips. And again, don't forget the wheel. Okay, some green gold, little bit of Titan Buff. Swirl it around. Oh, my thing just looked like it froze. But look at the difference already with what I've dried brush and an area where I haven't dry brushed that green gold and a touch of Titan Buff yet. And notice how it's starting to take shape. So you've got that darker color along the bottom, a little bit lighter color on top. That's going to start making it look round. If you go outside the lines, you can always come back with a little bit of that Vintage Effects patina to, you know, fix up anything there. I still feel like that is too bright from that Titan Buff, so I'm going to put a little bit more over that. Just like that. Okay, let me dry that real quick too. Hi, Betty. Thanks so much, Connie. Oh, Madeline, that's good to hear. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, just in a couple of those places. That Titan Buff, because it's opaque, it wants to shine through that raw umber, which is not opaque. It's transparent. So I think we'll put enough layers on there, it will take care of itself. So back to green gold, little bit of Titan Buff. Let's wipe it off on a paper towel. And hello, I wear my paint and tend to rub it out if I feel like it's too strong. Just kind of rub it away. All right, keep putting my hand right into that blue paint. Green gold, little touch of Titan Buff, swirl it around, wipe it off on the paper towel. Dry brush it onto these little sections. All right, so now I'm going to take a little bit of hand sanitizer actually. So a little bit of hand sanitizer on your Mezzaluna brush or your stencil brushes when you want to mix between colors. You can clean out a lot of that color from your brush, wipe it off on a paper towel, and the rubbing alcohol, the hand sanitizer is going to evaporate, And when it does, you are ready to go with your next color. Whereas if you put it into water, it's going to absorb all that water. So you don't want to do that. A little bit of hand sanitizer. All right, so now a little bit of quinacridone gold and Titan Buff. Let's go back with a little bit of that color. Okay. I'm going to come right back on that green. Oop, wiped off too much. So basically we're just building up the color and slowly building up the color. If I have a brush loaded with a whole bunch of paint, you're just not going to get that look, you know, of dry brushing. Whatever stiff brush you have to dry brush too. If you've got a favorite brush that you like to dry brush, you can use a flat brush. Again, dry, very little paint, building up the colors. With the media line, because they're transparent, you can see the colors underneath as they're being layered on top of each other. You know, they're not opaque and have the solids and stuff like they do with regular acrylics. So you see, I see the green through this brown that I'm putting on. Not sure that's translating as well on camera. But see how that's just starting to take shape? Little quinacridone gold, little Titan Buff. Swirl it around. A little bit on our wheel. And we'll separate our wheel from the rubber and the metal later. But for now, it's just much easier to paint it like this instead of worrying about those tiny little, that little section. Again, oop, a little too much paint. See how that came right off because it was very wet. Just want to get a little right here. I love on my original, there's like a little rusty spot right there. Okay, so quinacridone gold, little bit of Titan Buff. Again, if you're using regular acrylics, burnt sienna, light buttermilk, bleach sand. Okay, and let's concentrate on this over here. And I'm not going to have any cobalt teal hue left in a minute because it's all going to be on my paper towel. So I don't know if you guys, if this is locking up, but I just saw on my monitor that it looked like my finger was frozen. So I'm not sure what's up with Facebook, but let's move that. How about that? I just want you guys to be able to see that as I'm loading it. So quinacridone gold, a little bit of Titan Buff, dry brushing that on. Okay. I agree, Paul. I think it's very springy, even though the sunflowers, you know, tend to lean toward the fall. I do find that this does have a little spring aspect to it. And I did one in the summer when I did Summerfest with Chris Hoy. And I love that bike as well. That one's a little bit more summery and bright. So, okay. So we've done quinacridone gold, green gold, little Titan Buff, back to quinacridone gold, a little bit of Titan Buff. And notice how that bike is starting to take shape, okay? And then I'm going to wipe off the brush really well, get a little bit of hand sanitizer, swirl that in, just a little, get most of that color out. I'm going to move that. And then I just like to, you know, touch it with my, hello. And it's dry. I mean, that hand sanitizer has evaporated and it's ready to move on. So now I'm going to take a little bit of the cobalt teal hue, wipe it off on the paper towel, and I'm going to come back with a little bit of that color. I'm not sure. I might have to zoom in for you. Let's get a little bit of... And you do want to make sure whatever paper towel you're using that it's dry. If you go onto a wet paper towel, you will start to pick up some of that moisture in your brush. Okay, I think maybe you'll be able to see that a little better. See that brightness right there? Let me hold that up. So starting to see some of that cobalt teal hue. Let's get that on camera all the way up. Okay. So a little bit of cobalt teal hue. And I don't want this everywhere. I don't want to do the whole wheel area, just here and there on the bars. Because again, we're going to come back and add some more color, building up these layers. Oh, that's so weird, Jessica, that you can still hear my voice, but the video freezes. So sorry, guys. Not sure what the dealio is with Facebook. Okay. So I picked up some more quinacridone gold, Titan Buff, wiped it off, and now I'm going to just kind of be a little sketchier with my application, just so it kind of stutters. See how you can see that a little bit more? Okay. A little bit sketchier here and there. Again, quinacridone gold, a little bit of Titan Buff. Especially in areas where maybe the light's going to hit it. We'll come back in and shade, some of these areas. But, maybe a little on this bigger side of the bar, a little bit more sketchy, brighter quinacridone gold and Titan Buff. This little bar right here. Can't forget this little cross thing. Again, that's all going to start giving that shape and dimension, taking it from just being flat with raw umber to looking like it is dimensional. Okay, so a little bit more there. Probably keep that a little dark. We have a shadow from our basket, so I'm not going to worry too terribly much about that in that area. This is our handlebar that you can't see much of once we get the greenery and stuff in there. This one you can see a little bit more. So on my original, I'll hold this. So see how you can see that one that goes that way. And this one you can see, the roundness at the end of it, whereas you can't see the end of that one. So we're going to bring the color up a little bit more on this one with green gold, cobalt teal hue, and a touch of Titan Buff. So green gold, cobalt teal hue, Titan Buff. We're just going to bring up a little bit more of that color right on that handlebar. Just kind of touch it. Well, it helps if I'm on camera, doesn't it? There you go. Okay, and then I'm going to take that color again. I want to add some of that here and there. Rub it out with your finger. Right. Now that we've got that dimension, I do want to fix this right here. Not sure why or how, when I did the pattern and the base coating, that this little line right here is actually the rest of my basket. I'll just base coat that in. just like that. And the other fix for anything that maybe you get too bright, or you know it's too much, or you have sharp lines, is you can always come back with a little bit of that raw umber, and you can do a wash over. See how that right there, again, that golden brown from that raw umber on top of a little bit of that Titan buff is going to give you a really pretty look as well. Okay, just take it down a notch if you had to. But I do want to get a little brighter right in here. I'm just going to use this. I could go to my Mezzaluna, but I have this in my hand. Okay. And then again, a little bit of sketchy quinacridone gold, a little bit of Titan buff, wipe it off. Let's build up a little bit more color. Okay, loving that. That's a little on the green side. Looks like it's got too much moss look on it. A little bit of cobalt teal hue, tiny touch of Titan buff. I'm just going to put a little bit right in here. So see, again, I love the Mezzaluna brushes because I don't like to wear out these brushes like I'm doing by dry brushing. But since I had it in my hand, I'm just adding it. Here and there, but not everywhere. All righty. Catch up later. Have a minute to go. Peggy, it sure will be. This is going to be on here on my Facebook page, and then will also be on YouTube, most likely by Tuesday. Okay. All right. Now let's take care of our spokes, and I'm going to use an angle brush. Just because I feel sometimes to get a straight line, an angle brush is ideal. So let me find my 3/4 inch angle brush. And you want to make sure you have one that has a nice chisel edge. So got that wet, dried it off. I'm going to load up my brush with a little bit of raw umber and quinacridone gold. And I'm just going to slide on the chisel edge to beef up some of these spokes. See how they're pretty thin right now? I just went over them with a liner brush earlier when I base coated everything in. And now I'm going to take a little bit of that quinacridone gold and raw umber to give them a little rusty look. All right. Then rinse my brush out. Hi, Monica. All right. Then I'm going to get out some Payne's Gray. So if you don't have Payne's Gray, soft black, lamp black, Americana Payne's Gray for that matter. Rinse out my angle brush, and I'm going to have a little bit of dampness still in it, okay? And I'm going to pick up some Payne's Gray, and I'm going to work it in. So you can see the water on my palette. I don't care if it gets on the whole brush, but I want the majority of it on that toe, and then I'm just going to kind of walk it. I want to make kind of a soft grayish color. The water's going to do that for me because I'm going to do these little shadows for the spokes. So I'll have them to that left side. Took too much paint out of my brush. Okay, they're just very faint. I don't even know if those, yeah, you can see them on camera. They're very, very faint, okay? Now, you really can't see here because, you know, that's pretty straight up and down. You could float a little color next to it, but I am going to do a little shadow for these spokes. Okay. Then I'm going to switch to my 1/4 inch angle. What Americana color can we use for cobalt teal hue? Any aqua color that you like. This one's a little bit on the, you can see there's a difference. This has a little greener tone to it, but I do love Laguna. Bahama blue is a little on the lighter side, but you know, any turquoisey aqua color that you like for the cobalt teal hue. All right, so now I have a smaller angle brush. How long has the media paint been around and how now it's exploding? The media paint, yes, it's been around forever, hasn't it, Margaret? I mean, I want to say at least 4 or 5 years. I've loved it from the day it came out, and I use it all the time. And all I'm going to tell you guys is just watch. That's all I'm going to say, because you will start to see it. Okay, that's all I can say. So 1/4 inch angle brush. If you're not familiar with an angle brush, it has a toe and a heel. I'm going to load the paint on the toe, which is the longer side of that brush. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of Payne's Gray and work that in. And I'm going to separate these two areas right now. So I'm going to hold this at an angle, and I'm going to slide that Payne's Gray right along to separate that kind of rubber and the metal rim. I just soften that with my finger. Okay. So a little bit of Payne's Gray. And I'm already noticing that I need to be brighter on this metal. I want this metal to look like it is rusted, just like the bike. All right, so now we have a little bit of separation there. You can always come back if it's not exactly round, fix it up from that side. But let me add some brightness right here so that you can see a little bit of quinacridone gold, Titan buff. Wipe it off. I do want some of that rusty color right in here. Okay, where else do I want a little? Maybe over here. So again, I kind of come up on that chisel edge of that brush. I'm not pushing hard. I'm just going to swipe it along the very tips of those bristles to brighten some of that up. And while I have it loaded, I can add it anywhere else I need to brighten something up. Okay. Ooh, loving the way that's looking. Do you think you will switch to YouTube? Jessica, you know, I probably will, especially if Facebook keeps having, you know, issues. I'd love to beef up my subscribers on YouTube. There's so much more you can do when you have over, you know, 30,000 subscribers, and I think I'm hovering around 2. So share with your friends. Have them like my YouTube channel. But yes, probably. And then I don't have to worry about uploading it because it will already be there. So, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray and raw umber on the toe of my angle brush. And right here on this, see how that's just straight? This is my handlebar. Let's zoom in so you can see. Okay, so I just want to do a small little circle on the end of it. right there to take that from being flat to having some dimension to it. All right. And then I will take that same color and I'm just going to float it right along the bottom. Like that. Okay. We'll zoom back out. All right, let's leave the bike alone for right now. I will come back and add, I say that as I load my brush because I want to fix something. We'll come back and evaluate any place that needs to be a little brighter, a little darker later. But let's take care of this basket. Oh, I didn't know that, Dee, that sunflowers sell from July through the first or second week of November. I love sunflowers, and they're one of my flowers of choice. Publix sells them 3 for $12, and I love to get those bundles. Okay, the basket. Now, I have a wave brush. If you're not familiar with a wave brush, it has little serrated, can you see the little serrated chisel edge there? So there's tiny, it's almost like having a rake brush, but this has more bristles than a rake brush. But it just has little notches, which is going to give that really pretty effect for the kind of the reeds that are on this basket that we have going on. All right. And then a liner brush or, you know, round brush, whatever you have handy. This is a 0 round. I'm going to pick up a little bit of raw umber and quinacridone gold. Make sure I have those on my palette. Again, asphaltum, traditional or regular burnt sienna will work. And I'm going to pick up on my little round brush. I have some raw umber and a little bit of Titan Buff. Mix that on my palette. And I just want to kind of help define where my basket is. So it has a tiny little, well, I wiped off too much. Little top section you can see. Get a little more brown in there so it's not white. It does have a little section that comes down right here. The front of that basket, right there, that little angled line that goes that way. I'm going to put some here, even though you're not going to see that right there. And anything you do see here, you would want to be darker anyway, okay? Because it's going around the edge of that basket. So I'm going to go ahead and put in these little lines that come down. And again, that's a little bit of quinacridone gold, raw umber, Titan Buff. These are going to have to be painted several times. You can put in as many of these as you want. One there. Okay, so this one's angled slightly. The others are straighter. That one's very bright. Go back to my my wave brush. You can use a flat brush. You can use a liner brush. I just, you know, the wave brush just makes it look super cool. So then I'm going to take quinacridone gold, a little bit of Titan Buff, mix that together. Little touch of raw umber. Swipe it on my paper towel and, you know, over, under. So don't worry about the sunflower. It's in the way right now. So I'm going to go over that one, under this one, over this one, under that one. And then those go at a little bit of an angle. Now see how it's kind of sketchy right now? Don't worry about that. We're going to come back with more color. And then this is, let's see how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one is under. Nope, that one's over. That's under. And to be honest with you, right now it really doesn't matter because we're going to come back and do those little reeds coming down. So if you go over one that you shouldn't have, not going to matter. Okay, just to kind of get placement. And I've noticed this one, I went a little too low. So I'm just going to bring that up. Just like that. All right. I saw that, Betty. Autocorrect is funny, isn't it? I know Dick Blick, Michaels, Chris Hoy at CD Wood has some media paints, Maureen Baker. Again, I'm sure all the ones that are popular are out, but keep trying, keep checking back. And again, very soon, I will be sharing some things with you guys. That's all I can say. Okay, so I'm going to come back now, a little Titan Buff, a little bit of quinacridone gold. I'm going to start beefing these up a little bit more. It's going to go under. It's going to go over. Okay, see how that color's starting to pick up just a bit more. And I'm doing them bright now for a purpose. You'll see when I layer that next, oops, went over that one. Should not have. And I want to fix. I'm having them very thin and they need to be a little bit thicker, a little bigger. Okay, now I am going to come back with my, I'm just going to use a liner brush. A little quinacridone gold, a little bit of Titan Buff, a little bit of raw umber. And I am going to come, so this is going to go over that, oh, a little more Titan Buff, Sandy. Make that stick out a little more, so that's under, that's over. Under, over, under. Okay. So, see, that's a little on the bright side. Appreciate you demonstrating. Thank you. Well, welcome back, Linda. Okay, so I'm going to take my raw umber. What I want to, let me show you my original. Do you see how sketchy those lines are? Don't fret too terribly much about them. It's kind of a weathered old basket. You got a little bit of that light color on there, a little, you know, quinacridone gold, that raw umber. And so using that wave brush or coming back with a liner brush and pulling in some tiny little lines, is going to help start beefing those up a little bit more. So I'm very, very thin on the chisel edge of the brush, the tip of that liner brush, and I'm just pulling it ever so lightly. Went over that. And the thing with the basket, even as I was designing it and, you know, looked at all these different old baskets and how I could paint that to make it look like it was weathered, but you could still see the sections. And I was like, oh my gosh, when you come back and you add shading and things into places, it makes such a huge difference. And the shading we're going to add on this and the highlights just make it all come together. So as you're painting it, don't worry too terribly much about the whole under and over thing. We will come back and redefine those even better with some shading and some highlights. Okay, so again, I'm just using a little bit of raw umber on the tip of my liner brush. Just kind of pulling it. This is a 0. Actually, I think it's a 0 liner. 206L, thebrushguys.com. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. Yes, I would love to, again, when you're on YouTube, more things you can do when you have a certain number of followers. But I have loved that platform, Tracy Moreau going over there and doing it. And again, it's keeps from having to upload the video. All right, so now that I have that on, I'm going to get some Titan Buff. I didn't wash out my brush, wipe it off or anything. I just loaded some Titan Buff right there on my brush, and I'm going to turn this. Because I don't know about y'all, but a lot of times pulling a liner brush is easier than going side to side, okay? So see what I mean? Pulling it down. So I am going to pull some of these little strokes, wiped off too much of the paint. A little bit of Titan Buff. Yeah, they used to carry at Joann's, they used to carry the media line, but they didn't carry the whole entire media line. And so it's been a little difficult to get. I could go on and on and on about it, but I'm just going to tell you guys, just be watching. I promise you, I'm looking for another liner because that one's seen better days. Just be watching. I'll share with you when I can. Okay, I'm going to switch. This is a number 1. I feel like it is not holding my paint today. Okay, so there we go. A little bit brighter. And of course, these over here are not going to be bright at all. So you can either just touch it with your finger, like I just did, or you can come back with some of that raw umber and brush over it, because it certainly would not be seen that bright on the front end of that basket. Again, I'm not really worried about my under and over right now. It was stressing me out. So I'm just leaving them, and I'm going to come back and show you how to fix that. Sometimes those things get in the way and you just have to, you know, go over them and then reestablish it. Remember to breathe and have fun, because it's supposed to be fun. Okay, so notice how those are starting to come up, look a little bit more like little basket, little woven basket reeds in there. Okay, I picked up a little bit of quinacridone gold. Just want to brighten that up just a little. Oh, a little too much. All right. So now I'm going to, oh, thank you, Robin. Appreciate you sharing. It's been so much fun to do these online. And I mean, I've met more, even than in my travel days of, traveling to all these different chapters and everything, of people that couldn't travel or, attend events. And so just so grateful and thankful for this platform, and grateful and thankful that you guys are here and interested. Okay, now let's worry about the lines that go under and over. So this one is going to go over, which means this one is going to go under, right? Right. I need a little more tight and buff. Okay, and then that goes over. That one's going to go under. And I'm using tight and buff, but you know what I'm going to get out? I'm going to get out a little bit of white. Just a touch. Oh, hi, Elizabeth. Ooh, don't get in trouble. But glad you popped in real quick. Taking a break from work. Okay, so I added a little bit of white to that. I want to beef that. There we go. Just a little. Sometimes on camera, I know it's hard to have that show up. Okay, so now this one's going to go over. That goes under. That goes over. That goes under. And then under, over. See how you can reestablish them? Just bring them right back. And then this one's going to go under and over. A little bit more brown. I don't want them white. Hello. Okay, and this along the edge, that's the edge of the basket. So you're actually going to see that go all the way down. Right over all those, because it's going to separate that right there. Okay, now on that side as well, I snuck one in. So do you see it right here? I snuck in just a tiny little line because, again, I wanted to make it look like the front of that basket was the same as the side of it. So I will go and just add a little bit of a line right there as well. Okay. I wondered what the wave brush was. Yeah, the wave, they've got some really cool brushes, Dynasty, the wave and the whale's tail that adds, I'm going to grab it. It's right behind me. I have to grab it and show it to you. So, well, it was behind me. This one, how cool is that? So this is a whale's tail, and you know, it just makes some really cool leaves, flowers. Jilly Bean has something on her YouTube that shows how to use a lot of these different brushes. Jilly Bean Fitzhenry. So make sure you check out her channel as well. All right, so my basket's looking a little rugged, right? I'm gonna bring in a little bit of brown where I got too much of that Titan buff. Okay, now let's shade it. Let's shade it a little bit more so that we can separate the sections better. On my 1/4 inch angle, I'm going to use a little bit of raw umber and a little bit of Payne's Gray, just because I want to darken that a little bit more. And let me show you, I'm going to bring my palette right here to you. So I have that color just on the toe of the brush, and I'm going to work that in. Work it in on the other side, have a little bit of moisture in that brush too, and then I'm just going to kind of walk it over to the right just a little bit. If I need to pick up more color, I can come right back over to that left. You do want to work it in on both sides. Now I want to take care of the shading on both sides of these reeds that come down. Okay, so notice how that just made that stand out even more. Okay. So both sides. So I'm flipping my brush so that the toe floats that color right next to that little reed. Pick up more paint. Oops, went right on top of it. Right next to it. Okay, so notice how that's just gonna, you don't want to line. I'm gonna soften that just a bit. Just float that color on. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. Again, take care. If you float that color on, you get a little bit of a line. Just use the other end of the brush just to kind of softly bring it out. You don't want any kind of harsh line. Again, I'm using Payne's Gray and a little bit of raw umber. And it just helps redefine the over and the under. And again, this side you're not going to see that much of, so I'm just going to put in a couple little shading lines there. All right. Now I am seeing like right here where that line, I'm still seeing it a little too much. So I am going to come back to my liner brush. Have you ever gotten lost doing a basket? Yes, Barbara, I have. You kind of just get mesmerized with, you know, putting that color on, and yes, totally. But I lose myself in painting, which I love. Just such a great way to, you know, bring everything back. Like last Sunday, even though I wasn't going to do a live after my grandmother passed away, I was needing it. I kept feeling like I wanted to just jump on, even if it was just to talk to you guys. But it's certainly a great way to, you know, just bring some joy and happiness in our lives, and that creative outlet is so desperately needed. Okay, so little bit of Titan Buff. And I'm a firm believer that the more you create, the more you want to create. And if you're feeling like you're kind of in a rut, I was looking at some comments the other day as I was watching Tracy Moreau do her magic on that hibiscus. And that, you know, so many are starting to paint again, or find the joy in painting again. And if you are struggling with painting or not feeling up to painting, you just can't get yourself there. Get out a surface and base coat it. And not, you know, feeling it, next day, get out a surface and base coat it. And I promise you, the more you get in that habit, and that routine of just starting, sometimes that's the hardest part. You will eventually put a pattern on or just start creating. I don't start with a pattern. I start with my paintbrush and I start sketching out a design. So very different than many of my designer friends. And then my pattern comes after I've, painted my piece. So I'm just putting on, as I'm sitting here rambling and talking on, I'm just putting on a little bit of Titan Buff and adjusting these colors where I want to. So a little Titan Buff to bring them up just a little, as you're starting to see. And then if you get too much, just go back and forth. A little bit of quinacridone gold or a little bit of raw umber. I'm not doing a lot. Don't have a lot on my brush. Just want to start bringing those colors up, okay? And again, with the media line, but also with Americana or any other acrylic paint that you use. If you get it too bright, you just paint a wash of your base color or the color you used previously, okay? So I'm going to come back with a little bit of raw umber. Oops, have a runaway brush. A little bit of raw umber. And I am going to reestablish a couple of these little areas here. Got a little bit bright. I can tone that down. Same thing with these reeds, these little things, the lines that are coming down. If they look exactly the same from the top to the bottom, it's going to look a little off, right? So down here where I'd probably have a little bit more of a shadow, I can put a little bit of that raw umber. Same thing with that bottom line. Just raw umber. All right, ready to move on from the basket? I know I am. And that's probably one of my favorite tips too, that if the basket, if you're painting this and it's starting to aggravate you, kind of go back to the bike and look at your colors and adjust maybe some lights and some darks. Hi, Kathy Williams. Move on to your flowers. Come back and move on to someplace else, because where we tend to concentrate on, if it's aggravating us, we make it worse. So we don't want to do that. I just had a little raw umber on my brush, so I brought it over there on that little handle. All right, I'm going to move on to the flowers. And for those, I'm using some yellows. So Dairy Lied Yellow, and it sounds better if you say it with a Southern accent. So if you say Dairy Lied, Dairy Lied Yellow. Another color that will that you can use, Americana Saffron Yellow. Love this beautiful golden yellow. I'm going to use Dairy Lied Yellow, and then Hansa Yellow Light. And your Americana color, you can use a bright yellow, cad yellow. I like the brightness of this one. And look at the difference. This is pretty similar. It's got some brightness to it. This is toned down, it looks like, with a little bit less pigment in that. So, however, this is highly pigmented, so don't let that fool you. Okay, so Dairy Lied Yellow. Get a little bit of that out. Barbara, they do not, Hobby Lobby and Joann's do not carry the Dynasty brushes. However, there are a lot of independent distributors that do. And I'm going to put up here for you. So jillybean.net carries a lot of the Dynasty brushes on her website, as does the Brush Guys. Oh, Mary Ellen, thank you. I miss teaching in person. But until then, I will be here. And this week, I'm fortunate. I'm teaching a seminar with the Hoot chapter group that used to put on a fantastic convention every year. And I'm teaching Thursday, Friday, and Saturday online with them. So, well, Donna, now you know how to use it, which is awesome. Okay, so the Brush Guys also have the Dynasty brushes. pretty much the whole line. And if you use Sandy McTeer, which is all lowercase, you will get an additional discount, okay? And then also Maureen Baker carries the Dynasty brushes as well. All right. When I find other places, I will definitely let you know, because I do like to support those distributors that carry the brushes. And thank you so much, Nancy. I always have paint on my hands, on me. All right, let's move up to our flowers in our basket, okay? So I have out my Dari Light Yellow, Hansa Yellow Light. I'm going to get out a little bit of white. I also am going to use Sap Green. You can use Plantation Pine, Forest Green. I love this color, but I tend to, if I'm using Americana, I'll mix a little bit of black with my Plantation Pine just to darken it up, or even some Payne's Gray. So thank you so much, Janet. It's a little on the bright side right there for me. It's sticking out like a sore thumb, but I'm going to leave it right now and I will come back to it. Okay, the other color, and how about if I put these out while you can see the colors as I'm telling you too. I'm going to use an orange because I do have a little bit of orange that I floated on the back end of those sunflowers just to give them a little bit of warmth. Vermilion. If you're using Americana, you can use like jack-o'-lantern, bright orange. Put a little tiny touch of that out. You don't need much. We're not going to use much. I have my quinacridone gold. I have some raw umber, white. What else do I need? I'm not going to get my purple. These are like little delphiniums. It needed a punch of color. So my little delphiniums in here, super bright and fun and so easy. Actually, this entire thing right here is so easy. It's little dabs of paint. Okay, so again, I have my sap green. You can use Plantation Pine. And my light green. I'm going to use green gold. You can also use citron green, margarita, any bright green color that you like. And a little bit of Titan Buff. And what's funny, when with these colors, when you mix Titan Buff, and try it with your Americanas or whatever acrylics you have, sometimes when you mix a color with white, you get a bright color, but when you mix it with like a light buttermilk, you get a really pretty color that you might not expect. Okay, so that's what I do. I'm flipping back and forth between my Titan Buff and my white on these. So to get started, I'm going to take my my number one round here, my number one round. And I wanted to kind of establish where these sunflowers are going to go. And like I said, I take step-by-step pictures as I'm designing it. I'm painting it. I haven't drawn anything out. I draw with my paintbrush. So on my original, I started drawing out where some flowers would go. And of course, I did that with white paint. So I just have white on my brush, and yellows are transparent. So this is gonna help give those sunflowers a brighter look anyway. But what I want you to notice is how I'm just slapping that color on. Okay, it's a sunflower petal. It's a line. I'm not even covering up all the transfer line. So kind of establish where those petals are gonna go. So what I don't want is, I don't have to worry if that's all covered in. As we add the paint on, working wet on wet with our yellows, it's going to spread that paint out and it's going to cover in those petals for you. Now remember, we took away some petals here, so I need to reestablish my petals there. Okay, so again, just going through all these with white. And a lot of times when again, because this is the way I design and I started with white, it might be an unnecessary step. However, since I did that on my original, it affects the way it looks color-wise. So that's why I always, even if it's an unnecessary step, why do it? However, let me backtrack on that why I think this is necessary is yellows are transparent and your yellows are going to sing and shine better with that white underneath. They always do. Okay, or, you know, reds, yellows, anything to separate and be a barrier between that background and what you're painting. Jolene, yes, you got to be a little careful. Jillybean.net. Such a gorgeous designer, and again has so many Dynasty brushes on her website. Wow, that sunflower is huge. It's because it's closer to me. All right, so kind of have my basic shape and lines. Did I miss one? I think I missed one right here. I did, so I'm just going to put that on. This little guy all by himself up here, and I forgot him. Okay. Oh, forgot one right there. All right, so if you get the pattern, if you outline, I mean, you saw what I did, basic shape of sunflowers. That's all I put on here. Because my greenery and everything is so simple to add in, again, just little dabs of color. So I've got to move something off. There we go. So I'm going to use that same brush. Get a little bit of sap green. And I do want to get a tiny touch of Payne's Gray, just a touch. Sap green, Payne's Gray. Both on my brush, tapped it on my palette. Let me show you how I tapped it. So I'm just brush mixing. Little sap green, little Payne's Gray, tap, tap, tap. It's mixed enough. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to dab some greenery. And I don't care if it gets on the petals. It's very impressionistic. The look of, the impression of this basket being full of green and, you know, greenery and leaves and flowers. In here, again, just dab, dab, dab. You can go in between petals. Sap green, Payne's Gray. Mix it slightly on your brush. I have a little bit of greenery that comes down here. So I'm just going to very faintly, see how I'm just very faintly bringing some of that color. I don't want to bring that really dark color I started here with all the way out. I'm just going to do tiny little touches of that color. Back up in here. Just kind of dab, 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 dab. Tap, 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 tap. Looks better when you do that, when you say that. Okay. Are you guys seeing that? It's a little, I'm going to tilt it up. There we go. Take a little bit of that. Shade the spokes of the basket behind. Oh, yes, thank you so much, Dee. Yes, haven't done that yet, but will. Okay, so getting in here where it's nice and rich and dark, again, that Payne's Gray and sap green. We definitely want to come over that handle. I have a couple spilling out right over here. Sap green, Payne's Gray. So every time my brush goes off camera, I'm just reloading with paint. little bit up in here. I have some delphiniums that go up in there. Again, no need to paint them on or, you know, transfer that on. You could, like I did here, a tiny little, what looks like a little, actually it looks like a leaf, where that delphinium's gonna go, but. All right, little greenery up in here. The back of that sunflower there. All right. So see how easy and simple and just blobs of, I do have a little right here, little dabs of color. Just like that. Okay, so I'm gonna rinse my brush out. Try and get that glare off. Okay, I do right in here, I want this to be quite dark. So I'm gonna pick up just Payne's Gray. Put a little bit of Payne's Gray in here. It's just gonna give that, that space that's very dark right there, where like you can stick your finger inside that basket. No lights hitting it. That helps give this arrangement fullness and depth and makes the basket, you know, look like it's forward and there's dead dark space right in there. Okay, same thing later when we come back with some shading in here. I do the same exact thing. So kind of mush that around. All right, let's move on from that. My centers of my flowers, I'm going to do with a little bit of quinacridone gold and raw umber. I'm just going to kind of mush those in. Okay. So I picked up a little bit too much raw umber there. I do like that golden quinacridone gold color. It's easier to darken up than to try and lighten up that raw umber. Okay, just kind of mush that around. And again, not too fussed if it gets on the petals. And I'm just using the corner of a small little flat brush. This is a number 4 flat, and I'm just on the corner, kind of mushing in that color. It's very technical, isn't it? Mushing in. Okay. So again, just this right now is just mostly for me for placement, okay, and shape, because it helps determine for me if it's an oval this way, that my flower is either going up or it's going down. It's kind of, it has direction. So laying that in helps me know how I'm going to pull those petals because of the shape of that flower. Okay. Thank you, Jolene, for putting that link in there for me. Appreciate that. Yes, Jilly Bean Fitzhenry. All right, so let's go on to our sunflower color. I'm going to start with Diary-Lied Yellow. Let's get a little bit of that. And I'm doing these wet on wet. And I have to show you guys again. Let me show you my original. Do you see how not exact, not precise? You can see separation in petals, but it's just a small little swipe of color. Darker in the back, brighter in the front. Okay, that's going to help give, again, some dimension. It's going to push those petals back, bring these forward, and very quick and easy. I promise you, the quicker you paint them, the better they're going to look. Hi, Sandra Schmidt. Let me come in just a little bit more. Okay, so I have Diary-Lied Yellow on my brush. And I'm just going to swipe that right over these petals. Okay, a little Dari Light Yellow. Now, if I want to come back and, reestablish a petal, like maybe I don't like the greenery that's there, I want to add, I'd come back with some white first, just to go over that green, if I needed to. But look how bright. It's such a bright, vibrant color, that Dari Light Yellow. Don't worry about getting it on the center. You can just go right over that, because we will come back and repaint some of that. I do want to cover up my white though. I don't want to leave any white showing. Big major white areas. Okay, so if you have any that there's too much white, just go right back over it with your brush. Fill that in. And if you're following along, I always tell people when I'm teaching in person too, if you're following along with my ePacket, if you bought the ePacket on my website, I skip around. So I know I haven't done the light greenery in the basket yet, but I wanted to get onto these sunflowers. And I have to listen to when my paintings talk to me. Just moving on. We'll come back to it. Okay, see how not exact I'm being? Again, that yellow right onto those white petals. Oops, picked up the wrong yellow. Okay, so quick, easy, fast, right? Oh, Bonnie, so am I. Cannot wait. I hope that Painting Palooza happens in October. I will definitely be there. If it is a go, I'm there. Okay, so we've got the Dari Light Yellow on. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Hansa Yellow Light and a touch of white, okay? Because yellows are transparent, we do want to have a little bit of opacity to this color. So little yellow, little white, and I'm going to start painting in some of these petals in the front, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in the back. Okay, I haven't reloaded my brush. There's enough paint on that. I'm just hitting the fronts of those flowers. And as the paint starts to go off my brush and I don't have that much light paint on my brush anymore, I'll come back and I'll add just a little bit to the back petals. Okay, I don't want to just have them Dari Light Yellow, but at the same time, I don't want them as bright as those petals in the front. So little Hansa Yellow Light, little white, hit those petals in the front first. Again, if you're using regular Americana, bright yellow, a little bit of white. Too bright, touch it with your finger. Okay. And I promise I'll go back at the end of this and look at all the comments, answer any questions. It's hard to do that as much as I'm trying not to look up. I do want to look at the comments and chit chat with you guys. Okay, then come back and hit those petals in the back with very little color on your brush. And if you get them too bright, the simple fix is just to come back with some Dairy Light Yellow and go over them. Even some quinacridone gold will add a little bit of warmth to them. But nothing much. We definitely want to see a difference in those petals, okay? They're looking kind of not so cool right now. Okay, so I'm going to rinse my brush out. And I'm going to take my, my 1/4 inch angle and a little bit of orange on the toe of my angle brush. And I'm just going to float that color. So the heel of the brush is up, the toe is right next to that flower center. And I'm going to float some of that orange on the back side of that sunflower. See how that just little glow of orange right there. I'm going to do that for all of them. And you can bring it up just a little bit. That will also alter the color on those petals, give them a little bit of warmth at the base of these little half flowers. This one needs to come around just a little on the front because it's just bigger. You're going to see more of it. Okay. But oh, just love that. Brightens it up, but it also just gives it such a warmth. And this one, because it hangs down in the front, we're going to put some here. Okay, not sure that's really showing up that well. And this sunflower desperately needs help. This one right here is driving me crazy. So like I said, you can come back with a little bit of white on your brush. And it's because I was pulling my brush, trying not to turn my piece. Sometimes you just have to pick it up and turn it so it's comfortable to pull that stroke. There. Much, much better. Okay. So let's finish adding a little bit of orange. Painting with you at Hoot this week. Oh, awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I have a new design I did for the Hoot chapter, and it actually uses this stencil, this bird Jardin stencil from Tracy Moreau, and yeah, looking forward to that. And then next month I'm teaching with the South Side. Is it South Side? It's the Chicago chapter. I have that on my website. All right. So again, a little bit of warmth from that orange. Hello. Pull it down. Okay, I'm going to come in with a little bit of Payne's Gray. I feel like my center's got way too dark. A little bit of Payne's Gray and just do a tiny little U right in the center. See that one right there? Just a tiny little U right in the center to give these some direction. Small little U stroke. This one is facing down, so it's going to have a U stroke going this way. Little tiny U stroke. Okay, let's get some. I just picked up a little bit of quinacridone gold. Tiny touch of Titan Buff. I just got my centers darker than my original. And I do love that orangey glow not only from the vermilion, but also from that quinacridone gold. Such a pretty color. I'm just going to put some of that back in. Oh, we didn't do a center on that one. Okay. So let's move on to our, coming back to the greenery here. Again, I'm going to put a little bit more Payne's Gray right in this section. Just use my finger to kind of mush that out. The green, the light green is exactly the same way as the dark green, and that's sap green, touch of green gold. Just going to put both of those on my brush, and a touch of Titan Buff. And I'm just going to tap around. Oop, wiped a little too much off. I'm going to tap around and highlight this. Okay, now I don't want to highlight all of it. I want to leave some areas darker, some areas, you know, like especially down in here where it's got that shadow. Nothing is there. But I want to leave that base color showing through so that that highlight makes more sense. See how they're just tiny little dabs? Oh, thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Sometimes I think, okay, if I tell them that my paintings talk to me, they might think I need a little therapy. But I do. I let my paintings talk to me, and when you are so, I don't know if addicted's the word, but I love color. And so, you know, to me, one of the best ways to describe it is that, you know, it sings and it shines. And there are times that you need to subdue that, you know, with like Payne's Gray or raw umber, or, you know, take it down a notch. But I do love when the colors sing. So thank you for saying that, because you never know if I'm just rambling on and you guys are wondering what the heck's going on. Okay, I need Renee to sit here and talk to me like Tracy has. Green gold, little Titan Buff. All I'm doing is coming in and brightening up some areas, especially past, like down here. Go past. So now I'm not on any dark green at all. I'm just on the background. And that is going to give you a brighter, prettier, almost like the sun is hitting those. You can barely see them, I know. Let me pull this up. Okay. So do you see where it's on the dark here, but then when it trails off and it's on the, just on the background, you get that pretty little shine of color. And I'm just using, again, green gold, a little bit of Titan Buff. I had sap green in my brush to begin with. Kind of hit it. I'm just tap, 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 tap. On the back of this sunflower right here, I do have, sorry guys, let me pull that down. I do have some green leaves, those little tiny green leaves on the underside, backside of a sunflower. And this one needs a little bit of a stem because he's away from the bunch. And then I'll come back and hit that with just a couple little dabs of green gold, Titan Buff. I love the way the Titan Buff tones down the green gold. It's funny because it tones it down, but it also brightens it. But it does something different than when you add white to it. So I love that mixture together. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit of cobalt teal hue to that same brush. Now this is going to give it a punch right in here. A nice punch of bright green. And again, that was green gold on my brush with some Titan Buff. Picked up a little bit of cobalt teal hue. And I'm not going to put that everywhere. I'm just going to pop it in a couple places where I want it to be brighter. So in here, a little down here. cobalt teal hue. Ugh, just pops. I'm kind of holding it up a bit too, so sorry if it's bouncing for you, but just so that there's not a glare. The media line paints do have a little bit of a sheen when they're dry. So, and that right there needs to be toned down just a bit. Where I laid in that dark, it doesn't need to be so defined. So you can just pop in a couple little green bits right in there. All right, let's move on real quick. Would you mix something with the paint to make it bright if we didn't have the media? You know, Janet, that's why a little bit earlier I was saying, oh, hi, Marianne. I got your beautiful card you made me. Thank you so much. Hi, Lori. Okay, sorry. So to answer your question about the media line and making things bright, if you take, let's say, this and where did that go? Citron green. You're going to get a different look than if you take, let's say, light buttermilk. Okay, so if you have those three, maybe mix them up and look at the difference that you get. Okay, I love this combination, and I don't know, there's just a softness to it, a realness. Okay, let's move on before we run out of time here and Facebook cuts me off because it's 4 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to use some dioxazine purple. You can also use Americana dioxazine purple. I have phthalo blue, gorgeous blue. You could use ultra deep blue if you have Americana. You could even use a Prussian blue. And this is how easy these flowers are going to go. Okay, so I'm going to load my brush with the dioxazine purple and phthalo blue. And I'm just going to tap, 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 tap my brush. Okay, so I have a little there. I know I want this delphinium. And when I lived in England, for 6 years. We had this gorgeous English garden, and it had the prettiest delphiniums. They were huge. So I'm just tapping that color on. See, kind of in the basic shape of a delphinium, wisteria, if you can imagine. This got way too big because I put a pattern line on. Hello. So I'll just erase that. But I'm just tapping in the basic shape wider at the base, tapered off as you near the tip. And again, I just wanted this punch of color. You can put them wherever you want. I love when things overlap. So, you know, go right up over a sunflower. Very loosey-goosey. Loved that this one fell right out of the basket. Dioxazine purple, phthalo blue, both of them on my brush, not mixed down to one color. Just going to tap these on. Need a little bit of color up in here. And at first they're going to look like they're sitting on top. So I will come back and add some greenery at the base if it looks like it's just sitting right on top. You want it to be a part of that arrangement. Okay. Phthalo blue, dioxazine purple. Dab, 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 dab. And if you missed the beginning, I do have 2 giveaways. So I have the set of Tim Holtz stencils. There were 5 of them. And then this original will be going to someone. Again, all you have to do, and I promise I will take some time and fix it up and make it look pretty. I never really worry too much about my demo piece until I've, given it away. I want it to look good. So, okay, do we have flowers? Flowers. Let's put a little bit here. But all you have to do is leave a comment, like, share with your friends if you want to. This video, and I will do the drawing. I am teaching a seminar this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so I don't have another live until the 27th of this month, and I will do the drawing for it then. Okay, so Doxine Purple, Phthalo Blue. All right. Pretty sandy. Oh, thank you, Elena. Oh, thank you, Pilar. Pilar's joining us from Madrid, Spain. Somewhere I should have been last year and would have been this year. Okay, now I'm adding a little bit of white to my brush. Little purple, little white. I'm gonna mix that. And I mean, like, mix it a couple times. I don't want it down to one color. And I'm just going to lightly dab here and there on all the little delphiniums. And I'm not covering up all the flower. I'm just dabbing it here and there, but not everywhere. And the fix is, if you get too much of this color, you backtrack and you pick up some of the Doxine Purple and Phthalo Blue and you go right over it. Okay. Then I'm going to wipe that off, pick up a little bit of Phthalo Blue and white. Mix that around. Highlight. That color is so bright. I don't know if you can see how that right there just came alive. A little bit of Phthalo Blue and white. Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. I know it's different than being very exact and precise. I love painting loose. I love the ease and the I think the forgiveness of, or forgivability, is that the word? There's always a way to fix it. There's always a way to go back and, you know, backtrack if you're not liking something. And I'm very drawn to the impression of, the look of, because I used to be a tight painter, and I don't know, it's just a style that I've gravitated towards. So now these are two very separate things down here and not looking very pretty, are they? So even though it's not on my original, I would come back with some green, you know, and kind of incorporate that so it's not so out there by itself. And that's the other thing. I always say when I teach, especially in person, I would rather have, you know, 50 people walk out with a piece they love, and a touch of their style and whatever in it, than 50 of the same exact thing walking out. You know, if you like it, leave it. My number one rule in painting. If you like it, leave it. If you don't, there's always a way to fix it. Okay, so now I'm picking up a little bit of Payne's Gray, and in here, I'm just going to darken up some of these areas. Let me get into a place right where I can show you something. Okay, so see how these petals all kind of go into each other? They don't bother me. Well, actually, this one right here is bothering me. So let me show you that one. You can come in with the background color, and this is Sap Green, Payne's Gray. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit right between those two petals. Do you see how that just separated it? Okay, you can use your background or your base color or whatever color's underneath it, or the previous color, to reshape some things if you need to. Okay. And there's a couple things on here that I will, like I said, go back and make sure are brightened up, lightened up, before I send it off to the winner. But, you know, make sure these little highlights are bright enough. If not, a little bit more tight and buff and green gold. Where we put those delphiniums in, you know, you can kind of tap a little bit of that around the base so it doesn't just look like they're on top of the greenery. Separate that with a little green. Okay. All right, so I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Get this back. Okay, so kind of finishing touches and stuff. Coming back with my 1/4 inch angle and a little bit of Payne's Gray on the toe. Okay, and I always like to add, you know, like this base color was the raw umber. So I'm gonna add a little bit of raw umber so it's just not so harsh with the Payne's Gray. So Payne's Gray, a little bit of raw umber on the toe of my brush. Worked that in. I want to shade right up underneath this basket. Thank you, Dee reminded me earlier. That needs to be done. Okay, again, here where there's some trailing flowers, you can add a little bit of a drop shadow there if you want to with that same color. See how I just brought that in right in here? Right in here especially. So raw umber, Payne's Gray on the toe of the brush. You just want to come in and haphazardly wash in loosely some of that color. I am going to go on the other side of that line right there. Soften that out. Okay. Here where the flower touches the basket, you definitely want to come in with a little bit of a shadow. Right there. Where else do we? Right in here. I'll probably come right up underneath that delphinium. Just loosely bring in a little shadow right there. And then also anywhere where things meet. So like right here at these 2 bars underneath this little, it's like a circle of metal that goes around it. So anywhere you have things that are meeting, you want to add a little bit of that shading in. Raw umber, Payne's Gray. I have a little bit of it here, but I have to flip my piece for a second. Let me turn that, because not only do I want it here, I want that to lightly go across the bottom, just a little. Right where these 2 meet. And same thing, bring that color right along that bottom. You can use your finger and soften that out. Raw umber, Payne's Gray. I got tight and buff on there somehow. Okay, so this just, again, where you kind of reevaluate your lights and your darks, things that need to be separated. Right in here, we would have a little bit of a shadow on that handlebar. Right there. Just kind of beef things up. All right. And I have to get that off right there. I'm going to zoom out just a little. Okay, well, that was a lot. So let me show you how I'm going to fix up this edge. Okay, so all the way around the whole outside edge. You're so welcome, Darlene. Thank you. I'm going to come in with a baby wipe. Many of you have seen me do this before. Wrap it around my index finger. I'm going to pick up some raw umber right along. I'm just working that into the tip of my finger. This is key. What brush am I dabbing with? I'm using a 0 round, Nancy, a 0 round. So, okay, so now I'm going to take, my hand is on the inside of my piece. That's important. And I'm going to work that all the way around the outside edge. Kind of frame in this piece. So again, just with some raw umber, go right over the bike, everything that's right there. And if I missed a question from you guys, like I said, I'll go back and look through and make sure I answer those. You also want to make sure you do that for the foot piece. Okay, and this, again, this iPad stand I got from Viking Woodcrafts. But again, you want to make sure you age that along the edge just like you did. Oop, I want my hand on the inside of my piece, or you end up with a line like there. But I love the dampness from the baby wipe. That it just softens that look. You know, you could do it with an angle brush if you wanted to. One last step. I need my bigger 3/8 angle with a little bit of Payne's Gray. And I want to float some color. Well, that wasn't enough color. Float some color up underneath the bike. Lift it up just a little. Put a little back here on this basket. And again, my number one, thing at the end of doing all of my pieces is to hold it back, look at it. I kind of squint and see if there's anything that sticks out or stands out. And a lot of times it's either something's not dark enough or light enough. Or if my darks are too dark, I need to brighten up my highlights. If my highlights are too bright, sometimes I need to add in some, some dark here and there. So just kind of reevaluate it when you get done. See if you need to add, but I mean, just that shading right there, hello, just really makes that stand up. And then same thing right in here. A little too much water in my brush right now. Okay, just like that. Ta-da! I hope you guys enjoyed watching my sunflower basket piece. Once I'm completely done painting it, I like to, I get this question asked all the time and I always forget to have it on hand. I like to varnish my pieces with the DuraClear Soft Touch Varnish. So it's either in DuraClear, or my favorite, personally, is the Media Line Soft Touch Varnish. It just protects your painted piece. Just like the name, it has a soft touch to it. And if you want to call it matte, you could say it's matte because there's no sheen or shine to it at all. It's not satin, it's not gloss. It's a nice, smooth, soft touch that just brings the colors up, protects your painting, and I just love the way it feels. So this piece could be painted on anything. I love it on this surface, but it really could be painted on anything. So you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'll be back, not this coming, so not a week from today, but the 27th, the last Sunday of the month. And I have a new design that I'm working on. So hopefully we'll get that listed. Again, you can find this ePacket and others on my website. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day. For my people in the Midwest and those getting tons of snow, stay warm, stay safe, keep wearing your mask, and you guys be healthy and safe and have a great week, okay? Thanks so much. Bye.